Letting Sean review the last Lupe album, definitely something I regret. Ha! Hello one, hello all, it's the most gothiest ghost of them all, Caspa in the flesh, and it's time for a review of Lupe Fiasco, Samurai. This is the latest album from legendary Chicago rapper Lupe Fiasco, and this is his 9th, if I'm not mistaken, not including the mixtapes. And this man has been doing it since the mid-2000s, back when I was in high school. And I've enjoyed quite a handful of his albums. Whether it's Food and Liquor, The Cool, Tetsuo and Youth, or even his album's predecessor, which may be my favorite Lupe Fiasco album, Drill Music and Zion, that shared a very strong conceptual view on drill music, the violence in Chicago, the culture, the background of it, but also sharing super valid critiques of the industry, of himself, of media exploitation, and how the art form has been capitalized on. It was an excellent, introspective, and powerful album, and at this point of Lupe's career, it's pretty obvious this man is about conceptual art. He is about concept. He is about a subject matter, a topic for an album, with a direction, a plan, a story, a message. There's definitely a reason to his rhymes that mostly draw a strong narrative, and on this one, I must say it's a very left field creative one for sure, proving even more why he is probably one of the most conceptual, heady artists in the game right now, and super creative. And with this album being called Samurai, honestly, with Lupe being such a anime aficionado, a historian, a lover of music, like I, having a nerdy trajectory, like I was curious what angle he would bring to this album, especially with this time around teaming back up with original producers like Chili. No, not my dog Chili. That would be weird. No, I'm talking about his producer who was unfortunately incarcerated, and also Soundtrack, who did production for the previous album. And this is an album surrounding the career, but not how you would think, of late great neo-soul singer from London, Amy Winehouse. Yes, Amy Winehouse. Which definitely threw me for a loop, but it does make sense, so don't let this throw you for like a loop either, because this was inspired by a voicemail sent to her, received by producer Salam Remy from Amy Winehouse, in which in this message she likens herself to a samurai. And as I dive into the lyrics more, the narrative becomes immensely clear. From speaking on the big coats in London, striving for success in London, incorporation of jazz. It makes perfect sense, especially with sonically, how we're getting the elements of neo-soul, the elements of jazz, lo-fi, that are just laced into this album. And if I'm to completely nerd out here, there is actually boom bap here, and boom bap is heavily structured from jazz, from soul, and keeping it sometimes hypnotic, entrancing, beautiful throughout, even in the gloomy moments. There's definitely beauty to some of the oddity that is on this album, but there's also very triumphant moments too. There's something also of Asian culture within the lyrics, within the sonic palette, and for the most part it starts off pretty celebratory. And I will say also this album engages in a intoxicating feel at points, even a vintage feel at points. And Lupe's charisma, the way he just cuts through this production, is very much like a samurai. Like, this is probably the most charismatic I've probably heard him on a track in quite a while, and I did love Drill Music and Zion, but for the somber tone of that album, if he were to go 0 to 100, it wouldn't really make too much sense. But on this one, he has a lot of character, a lot of personality, which I do think is fitting due to this being the alternate life in a celebratory way to Amy Winehouse. But don't get me wrong, this thing does have its somber and vulnerable moments too, as this is a woman who was very talented, very unique, and very loved, but unfortunately was rendered helpless to substance abuse, to mental health, to drugs, which unfortunately led to her downfall and led to her passing. So I'm not exactly sure if the battles are reflective of the battles Amy faced. I think this is just a reflection of her words when she was in Wu-Tang mode, when she sent that message, and what it would have been like if she was a battle rapper. Where, as I mentioned earlier, Amy is referring to herself as a samurai, and Lupe tastefully putting her lyrical voicemail into the hook. Really neat, very beautifully alliterated little battle raps for you, which I guess sparked the idea and just led to a victory lap, and a very clever one too. Like, Lupe is lyrically in his bag, and if you're going to make such a legend and such a great, like, Amy on top of the game as a battle rapper, he is definitely doing that here. And of course, it's Lupe. He has to go a little out of the norm here. So on Mumble Rap, Amy runs into this old man who grants her the power to perform, and every word, everything she says is a rap. And I also love the A Tribe Called Quest vibes that are coming off the production. With these mumbled vocals that definitely draw the narrative, it's almost like it's a reflection of the old man casting a spell, which leads her to become a force to be reckoned with, which leads her to become a monster, a beast, a samurai, and just slicing and dicing and just winning these battles. Yeah, I'm insane. As she is just possessed and powerful and just unstoppable, which leads to spectators being in complete shock and awe, as you could hear at the end of this track. Meanwhile, the song Cake is pretty much a glorious lyrical victory rap here, going off of the turn of phrase takes the cake and contextualizing it in very clever, amazing ways, which what Lupe does on here is just weaving one bar into the other. It's absolutely insane, which I will get into more of examples later. And honestly, going over a lot of people's heads, and the fact that I got this, I'm not here to toot my own horn or anything, but I felt accomplished. I felt good. Felt good. Saying a combination, confrontation and pondering, occupation is populating, the conference with conversational astonishment, consuming comments and vomiting up the Vonnegut, which is a reference to the novel, the fantastic novel, Breakfast of Champions. And if you were listening closely, Lupe, playing as Amy, was saying how she is just getting victory after victory, eating cake for breakfast, lunch, dinner, which correlates to the Kurt Vonnegut line, the Breakfast of Champions lines, due to the fact she has it in the morning. Also mentioning her influences, such as Janis Joplin, and describing and correlating very clever lyrical magic, which for each season just continuing victory after victory all year round with her wit, her lyrical ability. So Lupe is narratively breaking a lot of things down, creating a story, and executing it in a very clever, creative, engaging, and thoughtful way, where each bar correlates to a very strong narrative here that he's putting together with very dizzying but also passionate delivery here, very nice vocal performances, and just off-the-wall, otherworldly wordplay, which he also shines on the track Number 1 Headband, as Lupe strings together a myriad of likenings and references that just blend together so seamlessly, like from one line to the next. It's the way of the warrior, wading the waters for crystal clear. Lyrical smears pierce like ears, like mics pointed at monitors. Receiving fever like a thermometer. We burnin', we'll take it back like thermostats. Burnin' like Mississippi and furnaces, and thermoses and gats. Like, Lupe is just killing it right now, while also going into references of those who brought him to where he is today, and also producers that are greats in his eyes and in a lot of people's eyes too, such as the production of Kanye and Alchemist, to coalesce with the determination into this project, and even going into reference points of his last album, while simultaneously speaking on the top tier of the said categories that he's speaking on in the case that Amy is going for here. And also we have Bigfoot, which is a very endearing, soulful, jazzy cut, which delves more into a vulnerable side here, as Amy is exploring the more darker and more humble sides of being an artist. You know, starting to become doubtful, starting to become weary, and due to greatness, pressure is building and becoming more immense. But also simultaneously, I feel Lupe is also spreading a message to the listener here, where as people do uplift celebrities, I feel Lupe is also pointing out his distaste in the deifying of an artist. And there's nothing wrong with encouraging, but also not putting too much pressure on them, and remembering that they're human too, and remembering that the artist themselves is human too, and honestly just trying not to burn out, trying to just stay focused, stay grounded, and just let it flow creatively, and not to rush the process, which is something I could relate to because I'm trying not to rush processes as well, but I digress. And the song Outside, which is an excellent display of Lupe's creativity here, which is a moment that reminds me of drill music in Zion, as he allows the instrumental to play out to tell a story. This time it's due to Amy's connections with the fans, how she just needed time to get things together, to prepare, to get things together, so that way she could continue to have a consistent relationship with her fans and show her admiration for giving their admiration as well. And just staying consistent with staying loyal to them, connecting with them, really showing appreciation that Amy is speaking on. And again, I feel the silence is a definite powerful moment, as the space, as the silence is symbolizing Amy's mentality here. The only song to me that I really had a gripe with was Palaces. I found Lupe's vocals here to be kind of repetitious, kind of one note, and the beat switch didn't really do too much for me. And sure, it is probably the only track with a beat switch, but it's not a very exciting one. And the closer is definitely another humble moment here, as Samurai brings Amy back down to earth, talking about the experiences of being a battle rapper, the downfalls of an artist, the problematic routes they could take, and trying to avoid falling into the traps that entertainers normally do, and being determined to break out of these obstacles, stay out of these obstacles, and stay determined and prosper. So yeah, I really think Lupe has definitely come up with something that I feel has boosted creativity in hip-hop a lot. And trust me, creativity and hip-hop has definitely gone hand in hand a lot lately. But on this, I feel Lupe has dropped probably the most creative album of his career. And it's really something I don't think fans should sleep on. I hope they're not. Because with the exception of one track, I feel Lupe definitely told a compelling story here. Do I wish it ended probably in more of a epic and less cryptic way? Sure. But man, I think the production's great. Lupe's best writing is on here. Very creative, very heady. Production's great, and honestly, I would love to hear more of what Lupe and Chili and Soundtrack are going to put together next, because they're really proving to be a very innovative team. And with a subject such as Amy Winehouse being a battle rapper and Lupe beasting it, who knows what he could do next. I'm feeling a 4 black hearts out of 5 on this album. But if you've given this a listen, what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? That's it. Caspa, Gothic Ghost, Lupe Fiasco, Samurai, Amy Winehouse, RIP. Till we meet again.